So my brother, he'll see too. So I look out, was last night, out in red.
Good early afternoon and welcome into DETV, a sports special. It's your Championship Sunday NFL preview, one of the best days of the year. Two fantastic games at 3 o'clock and 6:30, and we are all here at DETV to help break it down and get you everything you need to know ahead of these upcoming matchups. Again, Nick Alessandrini joined by the greatest crew in television here today. We're back with Jason McCall, Matthew Maurer, and of course the coach, Bill Harmon. Guys, here we are able to get together on a Sunday ahead of some great matchups, as I alluded to earlier. It's going to be a fun day. We got a lot to talk to. We're going to be joined by Martin Frank of Delaware Online and the News Journal. He's going to be live from the press box at Lincoln Financial Field. He's going to check in with us and talk a little bit about the Eagles matchup with the 49ers. We're joined by Coach Bill Harmon, who's a member of the Fox NFL Sunday crew. Coach, a busy playoff this year for you. Glad you had some free time to join us here on this Sunday.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you all, and I'm expecting a really great slate of two terrific games, and we had the opportunity to do two with our crew this year, and they were really fun. We had the 49ers in Seattle, and then we had the Eagles last week against the Giants. So we got to see some really great football and some good insights into today's matchups.
Yeah, we're going to dive into some of those matchups that Coach had a first-hand look at here in a little while. Jason, how we feeling? Your Ravens not in it yet this year, but Lamar Jackson, a big offseason for them coming up.
Yeah, it's the gold jersey. You need to throw the gold rush at Lamar. Pay that man. Pay that man. But I'm excited to be here today. The greatest crew, sports business right now. They're here to talk about some great games, some great matchups, and excited to see how it's going to play out today.
And we're also joined, as always, by Matthew Maurer. Matt, thanks for coming. Welcome back. And we still let you up here, 49ers fan, but you're still up on the desk today ahead of the game against the Eagles. How you feeling with your 49ers today coming on the road?
Huge game. I think this is one of these games that I think you couldn't ask for a better matchup. I think both teams have arguably some of the best talent in the whole National League in terms of top to bottom. And I think this is going to be a huge statement for Purdy's future. I mean, if he continues to do what he's been doing, the Niners are going to have themselves a little interesting situation in the offseason. But I'm really looking forward to it. I just think that both of these guys, both of these teams, just have such a great matchup. And I just really look forward to seeing this.
And eerily similar as well. These two teams kind of been the two top teams in the NFC all year. And here we are on Championship Sunday, and those two are going to battle for the NFC title. We're going to get to both of these games. We're going to get to Martin Frank here in just a few minutes. And right now, though, let's recap a little bit of what happened last week in the divisional round and just talk a little bit about how these teams all got to this point. And let's start, Coach, with the Eagles. A great win last week. Really not a contest almost throughout. They came into that game, wondering the health of Jalen Hurts. How is he going to look in his first playoff action against a Giants team that had gotten a lot of hype leading up to that game? Brian Daboll, a top finalist for Coach of the Year, may be the winner there. But the Eagles made it look pretty easy last week, and in large part due to that run game.
Well, they got off to a great start, and Hurts was extremely sharp. They didn't run him as much as I think some people expected, but the Giants, I think, had reached their apex the week before against Minnesota, who you might question that record at 14-3. And I thought the Giants played really well coming in, but it was too much Eagles. Their defense was superb. They were able to contain Jones. He was not able to hurt them at all in the run game, and they did a really good job in disguising their coverages. Plenty of pressure. Jones was working his feet the entire game. Reddick, in particular, early on, was very instrumental in that. The Eagles were just better. They were able to push the ball down the field. The big catch early on, I think, showed the Giants you've got to defend this field vertically more than even horizontally. That opened up the run game, and eventually the Eagles, as they always do when they're playing well, pounded them on the offensive line, dominated that Giants front, which came in really looking good, especially with Lawrence playing so well, but Kelsey had a terrific day on him. I watched a lot of that matchup individually, and Kelsey had the best of a really terrific player, and I think that was the key. They were able to run the ball when they had to, but the vertical expression of their offense, I thought, really changed things. And having Goddard back, too, was a big factor, and I think that's also going to be a big factor today, working in the middle of the field with him.
And offensive line was spectacular last week. Again, top offensive line in the National Football League all season long, and nothing different in that win over the Giants. Jason, 44 handoffs the Eagles had in that game, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, over 6 yards per carry. Kenneth Gainwell was over 100 yards in that one. They really got that run game going. What did you see out of the Eagles in that Giants game last week?
I mean, it was hard to watch if you were a Giants fan. It was total domination from the first whistle, from kickoff. The Eagles proved why they are the #1 seed and why they've been favorites all year long. And to echo what Coach said a few moments ago, the Giants just simply ran out of gas. I mean, they went as far as they were going to go, honestly. And I think it was easy for the Eagles to shut down the Giants. Who do they have at wide receiver?
Hodgins and Richie James. How about those two names?
My point exactly. So we don't have to key in on a star receiver. You can key in on Saquon and Daniel Jones, as they're pretty much the starters for their run game. So if you shut down those run lanes, you force Daniel Jones to be a passer, and we know that he's not the most accurate or the most careful with the football. So we're just total domination by the Eagles. I thought all 3 phases, excellent game.
And Matt, your 49ers, a tough one against Dallas. The first top 15 defense that Brock Purdy had a chance to face all season long, part of that 12-game win streak. But they came in, 49ers were able to get the win. Dallas played them tough, but that Niner defense held Dak and the offense to just 12 points. What do you think you'd see from the Niners last week?
Well, I mean, Purdy, this was the one game that he really struggled. I mean, did not look as smooth as he did the regular season. But, I mean, Dallas is one of the better defenses, so I expected him to struggle in that game. I think the big thing with that matchup was Dak Prescott was under constant pressure. And I think everybody knows Bosa, right? He gets all the highlights, he gets the sacks. But Armstead is an incredibly huge piece of that defensive line. He's very versatile. He really runs stuffs well, and they just had a hard time getting going. And I think that was the biggest problem. Now, on the flip side, they did not do a very good job, San Francisco, in shutting down Lamb. Lamb was constantly in the game. He was constantly giving him issues, and that could play out today with Brown, who's equally as talented, if not maybe more. So that's going to be an issue that the Niners are going to have to make adjustments for.
And now it's time to dive a little bit deeper into this matchup. We are now joined by the News Journal and Delaware Online's Martin Frank. Does such a good job covering the Eagles. We had the luxury of having him on during the draft process, talking a little bit about what the Eagles might do in the draft. We talked to him before the year, and now here we are on Conference Championship Sunday. And Martin, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All excited for some reason.
And we appreciate it, Martin, again, taking the time out of your busy day. Having a little bit of some audio issues here. We'll hopefully get to hear you here in a little bit. But you are live up at Philadelphia. I talked to you early this morning. You were on your way up there. So you are at the link right now. Just talk a little bit about that environment. How is, you got to see some tailgating probably on your way into the building. What is the vibe up there in Philadelphia ahead of this NFC Championship game?
Yeah, I had some trouble hearing a lot of what you said, but I think you were asking about the tailgating situation. Is that right? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The parking lots are already packed, and we're this was like 4 hours before the game. It's like Woodstock basically. You got people drinking for hours, finding different unique places to relieve themselves, you know what I mean? And everyone's fired up, excited, you never see traffic like this before a game. up until like maybe 2 hours or an hour and a half before the game, it was like this like 4 hours beforehand. So, it's kind of a big day here in Philly for, Eagles fans and stuff. There's a lot of excitement about, the possibility of them winning today and then going to the Super Bowl, obviously. So, this is the last home game of the season, one way or the other, and people are excited about it.
Hey Martin, is there any idea in terms of is there going to be security monitoring fans? I know sometimes Philadelphia gets a little rowdy. Is there like an extra boost in security?
I'll get a limousine and we'll all ride off for dinner. You gotta go find the best wine. Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, shit. Okay, buddy. So I'm checking literally like.
Hey, Martin, we still with us? Sorry, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, you're right in Anaheim. Missed the spot.
Hey, sorry, having some technical issues here. We'll hopefully get this figured out here in a minute with Martin. Again, who's taking the time and busy schedule to join us up from Philadelphia. Hopefully we'll get him back here going in a second. But Martin looks ready to go up there. Looks like it's a little chilly up in Philadelphia today, as it's going to be in both of these championship games, Arrowhead and Lincoln Financial Field.
You know what? How about bottle of red, bottle of white? House red, house white.
Hey, Martin.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. We got Martin now back, so we appreciate it, Martin. Again, thanks for joining us. Sorry about the audio issues just a little while ago. So let's dive into a little bit deeper this matchup here. Lane Johnson going to be good to go today there at right tackle. How is he kind of feeling now as he's making his way back into this lineup?
I'm sorry, I heard right tackle. Were you asking about Lane Johnson?
Yeah, sorry, Lane Johnson's return. How has he been at practice, and how do you think he'll be today?
Oh yeah, he's been practicing all week. I mean, he was a full participant on Friday and everything, and he made it through the game last week against the Giants without any issues and stuff. And they need him desperately. I mean, he's a great right tackle. He's probably going to go against the 49ers. There's Bosa, who led the NFL in sacks with like 18 and a half. So Johnson's going to be key for as far as like the Eagles holding up underneath the San Francisco pressure and everything. So, but all indications are he's good to go, full strength and everything, and we'll see if he makes it through.
They're going to need him.
Martin, it's Bill Harmon. Good to see you, and thanks for being with us. One of the other additions back into the lineup, I believe, is going to be Maddox at safety, and I think that's a huge factor, especially in the concept of defending the middle of the field against the 49ers play-action passing. Did you get a chance to watch him this week, and how effective do you think he's going to be with that big toe issue?
We watched him for a little bit on Thursday, and he seems to be ready to go. I mean, they obviously wouldn't put him out there today unless he was ready, because obviously you got big tests. You mentioned the 49ers receivers, especially going over the middle. And it's actually going to be like the first time in at least a couple months where like you've got both Vontae Maddox and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, playing in the middle of the field there. So that's a huge lift for the Eagles. Reed Blankenship has kind of done a pretty good job filling in, for one and for both of them actually from time to time. So, now like Blankenship can be like the third safety, can come out there, in dime packages and everything. So, it only makes the Eagles defense that much stronger. And obviously when you have weapons like Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and even Brandon Ayuk going deep, I mean, you're going to need all the help that you can get. So, it's a good sign. It'd be interesting to see like how much they use Maddox. I think, if he's good to go and everything, they play him as much as they can in those nickel and dime packages. But, they have Blankenship, who's played like the last 5 or 6 games and done a pretty good job too. So in case he's not, 100%, they could always, use him too.
Hey, Martin, it's Jason here. My question for you will be, we know that Jalen Hurts may not still be 100% fully with that shoulder, and you kind of saw that in the game plan the Eagles had last week with running the ball and being very successful. Do you think that they'll follow a similar game plan this week, or will we see Hurts air the ball a little bit more and maybe some more undesigned runs and RPOs throughout the game?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear like the last part of that question. Was it something like, is Hurts going to be like 100%, like no restrictions? Because I mean, if that's what you're asking, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I don't know about the 100% part, but definitely the no restrictions part, because they need him at doing everything that he can, because that makes him a dynamic quarterback, obviously, and it also makes the Eagles' offense that much more dynamic. You look at the 49ers defense, and yeah, they got the top ranked defense in the NFL, but they're 20th against the pass. So, the Eagles are going to have to exploit that. And the best way to do it is obviously with the strong running attack, which kind of sounds crazy since their run defense like gives up like 78 yards per game. But like the Eagles are going to have to be effective running the ball in order to take advantage of the passing, because if they're running the ball well, then your linebackers like Fred Warner and those guys have to play closer to the line of scrimmage to stop Hurts and Miles Sanders, and that leaves guys like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, like with single coverage or coverage they can beat anyway. So Hurts being unrestricted, doing everything that he's been doing up until the injury is going to be huge, and that'll make it easier for him passing the ball as well. So at this point, we saw he was pretty much effective against the Giants last week. Didn't see any issues, and he's really good about treatment and making sure everything's okay with the shoulder. So Jalen Hurts has to have a big game, and all indications are that he will at least be totally unrestricted and will be throwing and running, and pretty much have to for him to win. So, yeah.
With the two terrific tackles for the 49ers, McGlinchey and Williams, I think are going to do a good job of containing the Eagles' outside rush. So I think it really becomes important that inside push to get in Purdy's face with Cox, Hargrave, and then Milton Williams, who I'm a big fan of. He's got a terrific swim move. What have you seen from them this week, and do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers have a 23-year-old rookie quarterback. I mean, he's been great so far, but he hasn't played in an environment like this. He hasn't played against a defensive line like this either. I mean, the Eagles, like you said, are going to send waves and waves after him. They led the NFL with 70 sacks. There wasn't even a team within like 15 of them. So, the Niners have a good offensive line, obviously anchored by Trent Williams. But the Eagles have to get pressure on Purdy, and they're just going to send waves of guys after him. And if they can do that, and you get the crowd into the game, and he makes a mistake here or there, I mean, I think that's just going to be overwhelming for the guy. I mean, he's never been in an environment like this, and these fans are going to be crazy, once they get into the stadium. I mean, it's quiet right now, but in a couple of hours, it'll be packed. And, obviously a big part of 49ers offense is Purdy checking down to like his receivers and stuff. So, the Eagles want to put as much pressure on him to kind of prevent him from completing some of those short passes over in the middle. So, yeah, I mean, the defensive line's going to have to be huge today.
And Martin, you mentioned a few things already, but is there a specific area of the game maybe that you're really paying attention to, or an area to watch for you specifically in this one today?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see how AJ Brown does. I mean, he kind of made it known last week that he wasn't too happy with his the amount of touches and everything. And I think for the Eagles to have a big game against the 49ers, he's going to have a huge game. So I'm definitely going to be looking at that. I mean, AJ Brown's a proud type of receiver, and he wants the ball and he wants to dominate. And I kind of see a situation like this where the Eagles will have to rely on the pass a little bit more than they did last week against the Giants. I mean, a lot of that last week was obviously because they got the big lead, and no need to throw the ball. You can just hand the ball off, and just Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott and stuff. But I think the Eagles are going to have to pass in order to get in front. I think AJ Brown's going to have a big game, so I'm going to be watching that for sure.
Hey, Martin, this is Matthew Meyer speaking. Just a real quick question. Is there anything that you've seen in regards to, obviously the big thing that the Eagles have to contain, or at least hope to stop, is Joey Bosa's pressure. I know Lane Johnson hasn't given any sacks this year, and I think Jordan Mailata is, 6 this year so far. Is there any sense of them preparing that Bosa would attack Mailata more, or are they just all hands on deck to try to stop Bosa's pressure?
I kind of heard bits and pieces of that. Is it kind of like, how they're going to attack the Eagles offensive line? I mean, I think, they're definitely going to test Lane Johnson. I mean, if he's holding up and everything, Nick Bosa will probably spend most of the time lining up on the other side against Jordan Mailata. So, yeah, I mean, Mailata's going to have to come through. I mean, he's kind of had his moments, ups and downs this season. Sometimes he's been great, other times not so much. So, yeah, if the 49ers, really want to get pressure on Hurts, I mean, it might be with Bosa mostly lining up against Jordan Mailata. I mean, not that Mailata is a slouch or anything like that, but, he's not Lane Johnson. If they're testing Lane Johnson and they see that, he's the kind of guy that he was beforehand. I mean, like you mentioned, he hasn't allowed a second over 2 years. So, I would think that that's a weakness they want to exploit, then they're going to put Bosa on Mailata for most of the game.
Martin, do you expect the 49ers to spy with Fred Warner on Hurts to try to limit some of those scripted runs?
Yeah, I definitely think they'll have somebody spying on Hurts. I mean, at least at first, and that's kind of what teams try to do. But like we mentioned before, when you do that, you're giving up something, and that gives more room to Dallas Goedert over the middle. That gives more room for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and stuff. So, Hurts is going to have to take advantage of that. But he's still going to have to run, even if the guy's spying him. I mean, they do the read option plays really well. So, if he sees that, maybe just gives the ball to Miles Sanders a little bit more. But still, teams have tried to spy him, and you're giving up something in the passing game, and that's the biggest difference between Hurts this year and last year is he's taken advantage of that much more than he did. I mean, that's why the Eagles have one of the best offenses in the NFL. So, yeah, they're going to, I mean, I definitely expect the 49ers to try to do as much as possible to limit Hurts' effectiveness, but, he can also, as he's shown throughout the year, he can burn them a different way.
And Martin, I really appreciate you joining us. Thanks again. Last question before we let you go. I know you got a lot of work to get to today before the game, but to put you on the spot here, if you had to make a prediction for this one, and you don't have to, but we'll ask you anyway, how do you see this one coming out today?
Can you say that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to put you on the spot here and ask you for your prediction. How do you see this one going today for the Eagles and Niners?
Yeah, I personally see the Eagles winning this. I predicted 27-19. I mean, I think, the combination of, Hurts having a pretty big game passing wise, and also the Eagles putting a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. I think that's all going to be too much for Purdy, and I think the Eagles are going to kind of win this going away and, head to Arizona next week for the Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
So we like to hear the great Martin Frank. Thanks so much, Martin. We really appreciate you joining us. And quickly, I'm going to throw this one in here. Bengals or Chiefs tonight?
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Special thanks to, again, we'll get his pick later. I'll ask him in the email. But really appreciate it. Again, sorry for some of the audio difficulties there. Special thanks to Dennis Pridgett for getting us back up and running. But Martin, able to take the time out of his busy Sunday to talk to us a little bit about this Eagles-49ers game. He's got the Eagles 27-19. So hopefully he's right there. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into this matchup here. The second meeting, only the second between these two in playoff history. It's the 8th time the Eagles will be in the NFC title game. The 49ers' 18th trip to the NFC Championship. The Niners, as we know, are riding that 12-game win streak behind Brock Purdy. And, of course, the Eagles have been pretty hot themselves. So this is a good one, guys. Let's dive right in. Coach, I'll start with you here. You've had a chance to see both of these teams in playoff action. What stands out to you about both of these teams as they meet here today in the NFC Championship?
They are very balanced, both offensively and defensively. We'll take the Eagles. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball, and Hurts is that additional X factor that can make plays with his feet, not only in the pass game, but of course, as we've already talked about, in the run game as well, and that really pressures a defense. Now, from the 49ers' perspective against him, I do think they're going to use Fred Warner to spy him a little bit. They'll play some more cover 3, which is a big function of D'Amico Ryans' defense. That allows them to get that extra defender down in the box, but they can cover the middle of the field better with that defense. This is a ball-hawking defense, 20 interceptions during the regular season. Picked off Prescott, I believe, twice last week, and a couple of them, the two I saw, I just couldn't believe he just didn't even see the defender. So they're doing a nice job, obviously, with their disguise. The 49ers have to be able to run the ball against the Eagles. They've been very successful with that all season long. Purdy started 8 games. He's 8-0, but he's never been in this environment. And as you guys probably know, a rookie starting quarterback in the championship round has never won a game. And that's Roethlisberger and Flacco are 2 of those guys. So
that's right,
a lot of pressure.
Sean King, the third
Sean
one?
King
That's
and
right.
Mark Sanchez.
Mark Sanchez, there's the 4. Yeah.
Sanchez, wow.
A lot of pressure on Purdy, but Coach Shanahan does as good a job as anybody in scripting his offense. He keeps teams off balance, defenses that is. He does a wonderful job of mixing in the run and the pass and the play action. He's going to have to move the pocket. Even with those 2 great tackles, I think interior pressure is going to be a big factor for the Eagles. And then they're going to have to run to the football. The one thing that the 49ers have done so well offensively this year is yards after contact, yards after catch. They've led the league 5 years in a row in that. I believe they're at 6.2 this year. That is a huge factor. They can stretch the field, but what I love about their run and pass game, especially the short pass game, is the wide receivers block extremely well out on the perimeter. Are the Eagles up to that task? We'll have to see. The Eagles, on the other hand, as we mentioned, they're really getting healthy here. I like the back end with Maddox back. It gives them a lot of flexibility. Plus now you can play Gardner at safety. You can come down and play the nickel corner. You've got Blankenship, who I think's done a terrific job, and you get more depth that way. So the Eagles have good combinations to counter what the 49ers are going to do. I think the Eagles are probably just a slight bit better, but this game to me go down to a big turnover at the right moment or the kicking game, and I think Robbie Gould might be the X factor here. He hasn't missed in the playoffs. Right. He hasn't missed all year from 50 yards plus. I think that could be a huge factor.
It could come down to special teams maybe in this one. Jason, these 2 quarterbacks, first time in conference championship history, 2 quarterbacks under the age of 25 will meet in the championship game here. These 2 met back in the Big 12 when Jalen Hurts was at Oklahoma, Brock Purdy at Iowa State back in 2019, a 42-41 win for Oklahoma. So these 2 guys have met before.
Yeah, it's a great matchup on the NFL for the youth movement of the league. When you look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL right now, most of them are actually under 30. So this is just following that theme of just the NFL really getting lucky with having a bunch of young talent, top talent at the quarterback position. I see a similar game in the NFL to what was played when they faced each other in the Big 12 a few years ago. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. To be honest, I think it's going to be whoever has the ball last in this game, because I think that each team can impose their will on the other. So I do think it's going to be a shootout.
Shootout. Well, maybe we'll see something similar. Matt, your 49ers, number 1 scoring defense in the league at 16.5 points per game. Number 1 rush defense in the league. They're holding opponents to 3.3 yards per carry. Doesn't get much better than that. Number 1 defense in yards allowed. They've had 30 turnovers this year, league high 20 interceptions. Just talk a little bit about that 49ers defense and how it's been so good all year.
Well, they have great. Well, first of all, Warner is, like, to me, I think he's the best middle linebacker in the game right now. He's not just a great tackler, he's also great in pass coverage. They also have Greenlaw, who's there, who is really good at pass coverage as well. So that, to the point that was made earlier about Dak Prescott's interceptions, one of those interceptions almost happened with Greenlaw, who just flashed and cut the route, but he dropped it. But I mean, that's kind of they're very opportunistic. You can't make a lot of mistakes with them when you pass. And the biggest revelation this year on the defensive side, at least for the Niners, has been Hufanga, and at the safety. He's been amazing. Again, they really do a great job at cultivating talent in the draft. That's one of the guys that they picked that's been able to turn around something nice for them. And then, like I said, I mentioned him earlier, Armstead, he does well. He plays defensive tackle. He can play defensive end. He's not the rusher that Bosa is, but he can give you matchup issues. So there's a lot there, and I just think at the end of the day, one or two things are going to happen. Either Eagles are going to go out and they're going to say, okay, we can get what we need done offensively, and then maybe we can impose our will on Purdy on the defensive side. Or they could say, wow, we haven't played this kind of team before. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they really have. If you look, I don't think either side has really. If you look at their schedule, I mean, Purdy's not going in there smelling like roses when he sits in that pocket. He's going to have a lot of pressure, and it's going to be very hard for him. They're going to do everything they can to confuse him like you would any rookie QB. And let's not forget, I mean, this guy was Mr. Irrelevant. He was a 7th round pick.
Our first Mr. Irrelevant of the broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, he's already playing with house money at this point. I mean, it's incredible. But I don't know if that's either the 49ers coach is really good, or Purdy's one of those guys that just fell through the draft and somehow landed last. We don't know which one it is yet. But, either way, I think the Niners defense is going to present a lot of issues for the Eagles that they haven't seen before. But at the end of the time, I also think Eagles have so much talent offensively that they could, very well do well in this game too. Wouldn't shock me either way.
Again, the Niners during this 12-game win streak, they got the highest point differential in the league with Brock Purdy under center, over 32.5 points per game. So they continue to light it up here. But again, both quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy, have not faced a defense like they're going to face, against each other's here today. The Eagles' #1 pass defense. We talked about the Niners' #1 overall defense. Coach, do you think struggles more today, Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy?
Well, the conventional wisdom would be Brock Purdy, of course, being the rookie, big moment, tough environment in Philadelphia. Those fans are as good as anybody's. But I'm going to say Jalen Hurts, because I think that defense of DeMarco Ryans is really going to do a great job on him and confusing him. The fact you mentioned Hufanga being able to come down into the box. They have the best speed, I think, defensively in the league. They are a terrific tackling team. Warner is excellent, and you mentioned, Matt, that he can play both in the pass coverage. He's a true three-down middle linebacker, which you don't see much more in the league, very often in the league. I'm a big fan of Gibson in the back end. He has really improved his ball hawking skills. He's got great vision back there, breaks on the ball well. I think they can bother Hurts not only by not necessarily having to crowd the box, but to be able to play the run game with 4, maybe a 5th insertion, but then be able to defend the back end. And you're going to have to do that, of course, with Smith and Brown in particular. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Goddard's a big factor here. But the 49ers have done a good job against tight ends throughout the year, and they actually play against a pretty good one themselves when they have to practice. So I think that's a big factor. So I'm going to go with the unconventional wisdom here. It would be easy to say Purdy because of the circumstances, but I'm going to say Hurts just gets some pressure. And again, we don't know truly how healthy he is. Yeah. It was a big debate last week of how many unscripted runs and scripted runs he had. I had him to 7 scripted runs and 2 scrambles. They actually did something very interesting with him in practice the week before. They were teaching him how to take a hit and roll to his left shoulder, which is wonderful if you can actually control that, which is very, very intelligent to do, as his right shoulder, as everybody knows, is the injured one. But to keep him healthy in this game with great speed running to him, if you watch the 49ers, they do a great job of team tackling. I think it's going to put some pressure on him. So I think the play calling of the Eagles is really going to be important here to protect Hurts and to allow them to do what they want to do without exposing him too often. And then Bosa, as we've mentioned, I love him. He has the quickest get off in the league. He can flip to either side. I'm a big fan of Armstead as well. I think he's a terrific player. But they're very balanced up front. And I think Bosa's going to give both Lane Johnson and Mulata some issues. He is so quick and he is dynamic at running the edge and then recovering. And Hurts is going to have to be careful of that for the backstrip.
I'm telling you, that 49ers defense is ferocious. Kinlaw, Greenlaw, Hufanga, you named it, Armstead, Bosa, and you got Travarius Ward on the outside as well. As long as Lenore, who has 2 interceptions in his last 2 games, he's been great. So again, that Niners defense is going to be good and up for the task today against the Eagles. But the Niners haven't really faced a team as run-heavy as the Eagles all season long. Week 1 against the Bears in that monsoon of a game that you can really just toss out there. And then the Falcons in Week 6, who had a lot of success in that run game. Mariota threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for another, had 144 passer rating in that game. The difference, though, no Nick Bosa in the matchup against the Falcons. So it's going to be interesting to see how that run game holds up against the Niners today.
Yeah, the run game is – so the run game is actually the key for for both teams. I mean, if we're really going to be honest about it, it's going to be who imposes their will again on the other. So I feel that, but I feel that Christian McCaffrey probably has the edge in the running back position because he can also be split out wide and he affects the passing game. It's something that the Eagles are trying to incorporate with Miles Sanders, but it still doesn't really click that way. But I do think that the health or not so good health of Elijah Mitchell will probably play a factor in this game. Maybe not in the first half, but I would say late third, early fourth quarter. If they're not able to run the ball effectively with McCaffrey, and if Mitchell is iffy or whatever the case may be, that may be something that the Eagles can kind of key in on. But I do think that, speaking of running backs, I think that Boston Scott might be a factor in this game somehow.
He'll go from giant killer to 49er killer?
Yeah, he'll go from giant killer, 49er killer. But my X factor of the game, before we even get to it, I just want to get out of the way now. We're all talking about Goddard and A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith has been putting up better numbers in the playoffs at the wide receiver position for the Eagles so far. So I think Devontae Smith will have a monster game because he'll have the number 2 or number 3 corner on him, depending on the matchup on the field. And let's not forget he was the Eagles' number 1 receiver last year. So the Eagles essentially have 2 number 1s, and you have a top tight end. And I think that Devontae Smith will take the top off the defense because I think that the Niners will double. They'll bracket A.J. Brown. They'll take their chances with Dallas Goddard, and that gives room for Smith to run free.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I can tell. I've seen by your facial expression over there.
Yeah,
Jared.
you know, Devontae Smith. Look, I think he's got some great pieces there with future-wise. I really think the key for Philadelphia is getting A.J. Brown going. When A.J. Brown's going, they're a totally different team. They're almost unstoppable. He didn't do well. Well, I can't say he didn't do well. They won, and they won big time. But he didn't put up the performance last week that we've come to know A.J. Brown to do. So I think this week he's really going to start trying to get – I think they're going to really get him going more than anybody. I think Devontae Smith, to your point, I think he has that ability to take the top off. But A.J. Brown's one of those guys you really want to continue to build and build and build on so he wears down guys throughout the game. I think for the Niners, I think what we'll see in this game is we haven't seen it because Elijah Mitchell and McCaffrey have been building this chemistry. But if Elijah Mitchell is truly questionable and truly somebody who's might not be full 100%, I wouldn't be shocked to see Samuel run more. I mean, he has not really run that much over the last month. But I wouldn't be shocked if he starts getting going and we're all talking about Kittle and Samuel and McCaffrey. Well, let's not forget Ayuk. Ayuk is a problem. And he's rough. He's mean. You can't really he got, fun fact, he got kicked out of most practices with the 49ers this year from getting into fights, from blocking. So he's one of those guys, he really puts his helmet on you and he's not going to back down. So I think Ayuk is definitely a guy who could be there and I think the Eagles will key in on Kittle and Samuel, but I think he's that guy that he could be that X factor for the 49ers today.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about more of that here. Again, Purdy has been great against pressure, especially against four-man pressure. The Eagles, as we know, Coach, don't like to bring too many blitzes. They get that pressure from maybe the best defensive line in football. Brock Purdy, though, against four-man pressure, 126.6 passer rating. That's 22 points higher than the next quarterback, which would be Josh Allen. And the Eagles, as I said, are number 1 in generating four-man pressure. These two quarterbacks, Coach, are the top 2 quarterbacks against the zone. Jalen Hurts, number 2. Brock Purdy, number 1. So it's going to be an interesting game through the air today for both teams as well.
So maybe we'll see more man-to-man.
That's
more,
right. Maybe we'll see that
blitz
too.
activity. So as you guys well know, in big games, coordinators are liable to change up what they've done in the past. And I think we're going to see some of that. Ultimately, it's still going to be, can they move Purdy off the spot? And can they contain the 49ers, contain Hurts? I want to go back to one thing you said offensively. I think Deebo Samuel is a real huge factor here. Beside his running out of the backfield, they do a lot of empty with him starting there and then motioning him out, which makes it much more difficult to cover. look for some tricks from the 49ers, just if nothing else, to keep that defense off balance. And he is really good at running the speed sweeps and the reverses. And I've seen him throw the ball. Remember, he's a lefty. A lot of people don't know that. And so when they run him from right to left, he's a real threat not only to run it, but to throw it. So I think keeping both defenses off balance, because they are so good in their bases, as you've mentioned, the Eagles especially, at generating pressure from a four-man rush. You've got to put them in a position where they've got to do things that they haven't done. And Purdy is very good at coming to his check down where it's available. And he's got one of the best check down guys ever in Christian McCaffrey, I think. He's terrific. And then if you run Samuel on those low crossers, which the 49ers love to do, it can really stress the defense, even though they're dropping 7. So you're trying to put defenses and offenses in uncomfortable positions. One of the keys to me, ultimately, will be, will the Eagles put Purdy in 2nd and 3rd and long situations? If it's 3rd and 4, 2nd and 5, I really like the 49ers opportunities there.
I agree with you, Coach. That's one of my Eagles' keys to the games, is obviously put them in 2nd and 3rd and long, as you mentioned. That way the defensive line can pin their ears back, see if they can get pressure on Brock Purdy. But for me, for the Eagles, guys, is get the ball and score early. We know the Niners are going to want to establish that run game. Again, if there's an area that Eagles defense might not be the greatest at stopping the run, 26th in terms of rush yards per play, in terms of efficiency this year defensively. We'll see the Niners probably going to want to get that going early. If the Eagles can get the ball, score, kind of change the game script there a little bit, make Brock Purdy put the ball in the air, get them down early, I think the Eagles are going to look good at the end of this one.
I mean, you said it.
You like that idea? Sound good?
I like that idea. I mean,
Who doesn't want to score early?
I mean, who doesn't want to score early? I mean,
They've done a good job. They're one of the better first half teams in football this year.
You have to score points, and the Eagles are one of the better first half scoring teams, so they need to stay true to their formula. But like I said, I know that we have two top defenses here, but I really think that they won't be able to figure each other out until the fourth quarter. So I think it's going to be a bunch of scoring until the fourth quarter. I just think it's one of those games where, as Coach alluded to also, where the coordinators are going to try to do something different from what they've done throughout the year, and it's going to backfire early on in the game. Try to change up the schemes and things. It's not going to play into either team's favor in the first half. And I think the fourth quarter is where the game is going to be decided. Of course, that's what every game is usually, but I think in this game, you're going to see a chess match. First 3 quarters, and the fourth quarter is going to be okay. Let's go back to basics, and whoever sticks to their basics and holds it throughout the fourth quarter, that's the team that's going to win the game.
Again, Eagles have outscored their opponents by 149 points in the first half this season. That is the largest differential in all of the league. So, guys, we're going to quickly dive into the Bills here, the Bills. They went home. They are no longer available. It's the Bengals and the Chiefs. We're talking about that here in a second. Just let me ask you, Jason and Matt, some quick questions here for you guys. It's time to get into our more or lesses here and see how good you guys are going to be today. A little rapid fire here for you. Brock Purdy, 16.5 passing yards, Matt.
Ooh, yeah.
Over. Jason.
Over.
Jalen Hurts, don't even have to finish. 249.5 pass yards. He's taken the over, a big day through the air. McCaffrey, 58.5 rush yards today for the Niners. I'm going to go with yes for McCaffrey to hit that mark. Matt, Miles Sanders, what do you think? 49.5 rush yards.
Yep.
Really?
Jason Hurts, 46.5.
Under.
Debo, 21.5 rush yards.
I think it was slightly over.
Slightly over in that one. Coach Kittle, 3.5 receptions. You want to get in on this?
I'm not very good at predictions. And I like to stay away so you can't get back on me later on. But I'm going to say more.
More, there you go. A.J. Brown, Jason, Matt loves him today. 73.5 yards, as do I. What do you think?
He didn't hit it last week.
Sticking with Devontae, over 66.5. You'd rather have that one.
I'd rather have Devontae over 66.
There you go. Let's go. Who's scoring today, Matt? Who's getting in the end zone?
Anytime. Let me go Kittle.
Kittle, Jason.
I'm going Devontae.
I'm going to go A.J. Brown. Coach, you have anyone you think might score today?
Christian McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey, that's a good one
to
have. Well, now let's get in before he transfer Hickley.
I told you I would make safe choices.
So we're going to dive into that one in a second, but quick, let's get our picks for the game. Dennis is rolling with the road team, the 49ers. Matt, what about you? Who are you going with today? Eagles, 49ers. Who's going to the Super Bowl?
Man, come on, man. My heart's with the Niners, man.
49ers there for Matt. And here we go. Jason, 49ers, Eagles, NFC Championship game. We both had the Eagles going to the Super Bowl in our preseason show. That was our pick out of the NFC. Are you still going to go that route here today?
So if you guys don't know, whatever sport it's been, I've been pretty accurate on my championship picks this year, at least playing in the game.
That's right, the championship teams,
So
absolutely.
I will stick with my pick of the Eagles, but my heart is saying the 49ers. But just to be a man of my word, I'm sticking with the Eagles.
Well, I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Of course you are.
Coach, do you want to skip you, or how you feeling here? Let's ask you, what do you
If
think?
you listen to me, you'll be broke. I'm going to take the Eagles in a really well-played, tough football game, one that the fans are really going to enjoy to watch.
I agree with you there. 2-2 up on the or actually Jason with us, so 3-1. Dennis makes it 3-2. 2 Niners, 3 Eagles. There again, it's going to be a great one at 3:30. Let's quickly. We got a little bit of time here to get out of the AFC Championship. Running a little bit over. We have a hard out at 1 here on TV. Let's talk about the Chiefs and the Bengals, guys. Joey Burrow, 3 straight games. They've taken down Patrick Mahomes. AFC Championship last year, 27-24. In overtime, Week 13 this year, 27-24. 2 wins for the Bengals. Like I said, they've won the last 3. Patrick Mahomes coming off of that high ankle sprain. Didn't do a lot of practice this week. I believe just threw 3 passes, no full sprints, no running. And really the team not sure how he's going to hold up today out there, especially if he's going to take a few hits. Coach, start with you. How are you feeling about this game? What are you looking for in the Bengals and the Chiefs here at 6:30?
Well, the sheer fact that Joe Burrow has led them to 3 wins. He also plays extremely well in cold weather. In the NFL, it's a matchup game. And for some reason, if you deep dive, the Bengals have a slight matchup advantage over the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, to me, the huge factor, as you've already alluded to, how's Mahomes? Is he going to be able to move in the pocket? Are they going to be able to contain him? Are they going to be able to get some pressure on Joe Burrow? That would be Clark and Jones in particular. The Kansas City Chiefs have not tackled well in any of the 3 games with the Bengals. The Bengals are really good at running like the 49ers, yards after contact, yards after the catch. That's going to be a huge factor to me. If they're missing a lot of tackles early on, I like the Bengals. Burrow is healthier right now. The factor last week that was so interesting to me was those 3 reserve linemen for the Cincinnati Bengals played as well as the starters had.
Yep.
And that, to me, would have been a big factor in the Bills game. Obviously, the Bills could not capitalize on that. I think they must obviously have really good reserves. They're going to be fine. In a close game, I think the Bengals, to me, only because you don't know the status, I don't know the status of Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree with you there. If we're leaning one team, I got to go with the Bengals here and Joe Burrow. Coach mentioned 8-0, I believe, in temperatures below 30 degrees for Joe Burrow. Hasn't lost in the cold weather. The matchup I'm looking for is up front, interior offensive line and defensive line for both teams. That Kansas City offensive line, such a strong left side of that line, going up against, of course, the pass rush from Kansas City. Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, who leads the NFL in pressure rate since he's came in the league. Trey Hendrickson has been spectacular. We'll see how that goes. That offensive line, to use Zach Taylor's words last year for Cincinnati, mauled Bill Buffalo up front with those 3 backups, as Coach alluded to. Their best ranked game from the offensive line all year with 3 backups. If they're able to do that and keep Joe Burrow upright, I think they get the win here, Jason.
It sounds good.
It all sounds good.
It sounds good. It sounds great. But again, you just said there are 3 replacement linemen starting. You might get lighted in the bottle once. I'm not sure they're going to be as effective today. I mean, with the pass rush of the Chiefs led by Chris Jones, I think it's going to get to Burrow. They've been calling it Burrowhead all week long and a slap in the face to Kansas City. But this game is going to be a lot closer than what people are saying it is right now. A lot of people are saying, oh, the Bengals are just going to run ramshot all over the Chiefs. Again, we do not know how effective Mahomes will be with his health, with that ankle, foot injury, whatever's going on with him. But I just think that the home field advantage will finally play a factor in Arrowhead at some point. And I think that the Chiefs will have a better game plan this time around. And it's hard to beat a team 3 straight times.
It is.
And
They've done it.
And
4 times now.
I don't think it's going to be a 4th one. I just think that when you're playing a team like the Chiefs and a coach like Andy Reid, something else has to give. So I know that Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Mixon, they're riding off momentum right now, but I think the game being in Kansas City will actually play a factor in the matchup today.
Going with the Chiefs?
You know what? Let's see here. They said it was Barrelhead, but I think it goes back to being Arrowhead today. So
And going with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
There you go, Eric
Chiefs.
Murray.
there you go. Oh, wow.
And the Chiefs. So we got a Chiefs, 2 Bengals. Dennis is rolling with the Bengals, another road team. Dennis is going with both road teams today. Matt, where are you going with the Chiefs and the Bengals?
I'm going with the Bengals, even though the real MVP, Pat Mahomes.
Here we go. Here we go.
It's the real MVP. But
Here we go.
listen, if I agree with everything that Jason said, I do think it's going to be a much closer game than probably everybody has put their money on. But I will say this. If Mahomes can get some resemblance of a running game, they're a lot more dangerous. But they got to get Isaiah Pacheco going. If they don't get him going, they're going to be in for a long game because at this point, it's a one-trick pony. It's Kelsey and then maybe a dump off to McKinnon. I just don't know how good that is long-term for them against a team that's very confident against them. This isn't like another team out there. Like Cincinnati really believes that they have their number, and confidence is a huge part in any game that you play, and they really believe that they own the Chiefs until the Chiefs beat them. So at this point, they're going to have to do something a little different, and I think they got to get that run game going.
Again, so here we go. Chiefs and the Bengals to follow up the Eagles. 3 o'clock kickoff for the Eagles and the Niners. 6:30 for the Chiefs and the Bengals. Again, Andy Reid, the only coach to have 10-plus playoff wins with 2 different franchises, the Eagles and, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. So, guys, thanks for joining us. It was a fantastic show. Any parting words as we get ready for Championship Sunday here with 2 fantastic games? What stands out on your mind, Matt? We'll start with you. Anything you want to close with? What are you looking for specifically today?
I'm looking for the Niners to get that win, man. So I can
known
hear
that.
all the Eagles cry.
Bang, bang, Niner
That's right.
gang. That's what he
That's
said.
right.
That's what he said.
That's right.
Jason, how are you feeling about today?
I'm feeling like it's a great day for football, but I feel like when you sleep on Patrick Mahomes, you're going to get burned.
It's a quarterback-centric league. I agree with Jason on this. It is really going to come down to how well do these quarterbacks play. And in each matchup, there are some really great dynamic questions to be answered. We'll see tonight at around, 9:30 or so. But I think we're up for a really great afternoon and evening of football. 4 really good teams, 2 from each league. And I think these are the best 4 teams remaining that deserve to be here.
It's going to be a great day of football. Again, as Coach said, 9:30 tonight. We'll know who's in the Super Bowl out in Arizona in a couple of weeks. For Nick Alcedrini, Jason McCall, Matthew Maurer, the coach Bill Harmon, and Dennis Pritchett back in the studio, we appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy a great day of Conference Championship football.